Welcome to Creative Courage Chats, a search for a new understanding of creativity and problem solving. I'm Alex Raffi.
Come to the right time in history. If you like.
Yeah, chaos is good. Chaos, there's strength in chaos. Anyway, that being said, welcome to Creative Courage Chats. I'm here with an old great friend of mine, Beth Lano, who is a creative champion, and she has a lot of experience in different forms of creativity, and she's explored. She's very comfortable in her own creative capacity, which is so wonderful to see in people. You know, people that are just really aware of their abilities and like almost intuitively just go into them. And I think that you're one of those people, Beth. I've always kind of admired you for that, and I've always enjoyed the times we've had in chatting about things. And today I get to have you for a good, 40 minutes maybe. And we get to talk about a lot of different things. And give people like a little brief history of kind of what you do, and let people know a little bit about what you're about.
Well, first of all, I'm really happy to be here, and I love what you're doing, and I cherish our friendship. I really do. I admire you, and I always say I'm a Renaissance woman, which is a cliche, but I came out here as a professional musician. I'm still a professional musician, or will be as soon as this is all over. I'm a marketing and public relations director for the UNLV School of Music. That's my day gig. I'm a freelance voice actor, and I'm a music teacher. I teach private French horn lessons, and I'm also, as of this year, the French horn para-pro at the Las Vegas Academy, which I'm really looking forward to. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And, you know, I think that's it.
Well, you write and stuff too, right? I mean, you
do.
Yeah.
I do. I have, writing has been a big part of who I am my entire life. So I'm not writing for money at the current time, except for what I do for the School of Music as far as web content, social media, things like that. I do a lot of social media for the School of Music and a lot of web content as well. But as far as writing, I have an idea for a book that I think I'm going to start writing that has to do with this.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So yes, I am a writer.
That's great. I'm looking up, it's just because I got an idea. So,
Okay.
so you know how I kind of, before I talk to people, I interview them, I always kind of say, I'm just going to jump right in. And for some reason, what you said reminded me of something, of what direction I want to go in with you. So Give me 2 seconds to look something. Okay, here we go. So, Rumi, the poet. So, you're a musician, but there's this poem that he has here. I don't know if you're aware of it. What was told? You aware of that one? Poem?
I probably, I don't know. Probably.
Okay, let me just read it to you, because I want to start this interview on some things that this poem is about, and I think that it's relevant to what I want to kind of tap into with you. So in the poem he writes, "What is said to the rose that made it open was said to me here in my chest. What was told the cypress that made it strong and straight. What was whispered the jasmine, so it is what it is. Whatever made sugarcane sweet. Whatever was said to the inhabitants of the town of Shigil in Turkestan that make them so handsome. Whatever lets the pomegranate flower blush like a human face. That is being said to me now. I blush. Whatever put eloquence in language, that's happening here. The great warehouse doors open. I fill with gratitude, chewing a piece of sugar cane, in love with the one to whom every that belongs." So I love that poem.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And what I love about it is that it's in its abstractness, it kind of talks about passion, talks about something that is hard to define, talks about something creative people are always chasing, right? That feeling, the thing that makes things worth everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're a musician, and you are a working musician, and you work with large orchestras full of musicians, and you've done amazing things, and you've been in the midst and been adding to the creation of beautiful music. And something, and music is such a powerful creative art form that crosses over every culture, everywhere, where a person that lives in the Amazon jungle who's never even seen a car before could hear the music and be moved by it, right? There's something powerful about that, and there's something, to me, in creativity that we're all not sure what it is, but boy, we're looking for it really hard.
Oh, yeah, we'll know it when we hear it, see it, or feel it.
What do you, what is, I mean, you get where I'm kind of going. What are your feelings on that idea? Because I think that's an important thing, and I think it's very relatable to people that are creatives.
So many things come up when I think about that. So in the midst of the shutdown, with everything going on, I started being a little bit concerned, no, a lot concerned, that I was losing my passion. Because I had so much other stuff to focus on that it felt like, I couldn't be inspired to practice. I couldn't sit down and just play my horn because I didn't have anything to work for. No gigs to practice for. The only thing that I really needed to stay in shape for was to play with and for my students. Then it took a little while. What I started to realize is that the kind of passion that you have as an artist, as a creative, doesn't go away ever. It just, you just have to let it come out in the way that it needs to, according to the circumstances. And you have to give it that air and that room to breathe and to seek its own form, basically. And I think, so what's happened to me, I mean, there's, like I say, there's so much, but what I'm doing here is just honing it down into the recent past. What I've realized during this quarantine and during this just incredibly, huge upheaval that we're all going through right now, what I've realized is that we all talk a good game in saying, well, I play a musical instrument because I want to, not because I have to. Well, now we have to sort of live that. So if I want to play, I have to play because I want to, because I love it, not because I have to, because I can't right now for an audience. I can't, but I can. You know what I'm saying? So basically, instead of stifling that passion, which I was trying to do because, or my mind was trying to do because nothing was fitting into an established pattern of anything we'd ever seen before. If I just relaxed and let go and let that passion come back out and seek its own form, it was like all of a sudden one day I sat down, opened up a book. I've got a book of the Bach cello suites that have been transcribed for horn. And I sat down with no chops, basically. And I started playing them, and it was like everything opened up. And I was able to finally, truthfully say, didn't think I was lying before, but I was finally able to truthfully say, I just played that because I wanted to. And the way I looked at it, the way I played it, the way it sounded was completely different than it ever had sounded before or felt. And it's so that passion is, it changes. I guess it changes in us according to our circumstances. And, the whole water seeking its own level thing, that water is completely changing. So
it's deeply personal kind of a thing, a process that you have to go through.
Yeah, it is. But it's not just in the creation of music. It's also a little bit, not a little bit, it's a lot in the writing process. It's a lot in my teaching process too. It's like the passion now that I feel for teaching and reaching out to these kids, it's completely different. It's completely different. And it's more heartfelt. It's more, I don't know, everything right now is coming from the gut, and it feels like it, as far as I can tell, feels like real passion
Right.
for
No.
just about everything that I do.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
reaching out to these kids who are going through so much right now. I mean,
Right.
we think that we're facing upheaval. Think about kids are really facing a lot right now, and it's and this generation, these kids that are in school right now, these kids are really facing a whole lot, and they're being kind of forced into reinventing themselves and their reality on a constant basis. So anything we can do to reach out and engage with them, I think it's another form of passion. It's another.
And technically, I don't think there's anything more important right now than that. I think that right now they're our highest priority, and we need to really start thinking about that. Because you're right. I mean, these are especially the teenagers. I mean, my daughter is a senior. She's going through her senior year. You don't think, and I know she's thinking this, but she is managing her fear very well, in the sense that they used to know what the future was going to look like. It was pretty clear, and it wasn't in danger. Their future. It was kind of like, well, it's going to be there. They have no idea what it's going to look like. They have no idea. And who are the people that are going to encourage them and get them prepared for? Because there's nobody better prepared to face unknowns than a young mind. You know, there's nobody is better prepared than a young person to be able to cope with these things and learn them. It's just that they need encouragement, though, because I don't think that we're a source of wisdom for them, as far as a mass source of wisdom. You know, I don't think that externally there's any wisdom coming for them. I think that has to come from close. Has to come from there. You know where they're getting their wisdom from is through the art forms that they love. The things that they're drawn to. Even, and I hate to say this, YouTube is a source of a lot of information for them, and it is their creative outlet. It's their creative draw. A lot of things that inspire her to try new art form is because they saw somebody try it on YouTube. This video's on YouTube, you know. So
we're so fortunate to have all of this stuff at our fingertips right now, and
right.
I think, and I mean, encouraging not just kids, encouraging adults too to seek this out and be more open-minded, be more open about what, these media, these forms of media, they aren't all bad, and I think too, as we encourage kids to, find your inspiration wherever you find it, just find it, and grow it, right? But we can't pose as the elder statesmen and women and the sages and everything, because as you say, we aren't really the models of stability and future right now. And so I think if you look at kids right now, and not just teenagers, younger kids as well, if you look at them as equals, and you share with them that we're in this together and that we're learning too.
Right.
And we don't have all the answers, and we're depending on you to help us as much as we're helping you. I think that's the way forward for us through this.
Yeah. The thing that, how Rami says just now in that poem, that thing that makes things open and stuff. I felt that this morning when my daughter was at her desk, her first day of school today. And she's on this thing, and I know there's like 100 kids on the screen, and all I could hear is her teacher. And the teacher said, and I came into the room to get something to drink, and I could hear the teacher say something to the extent of, "Hey, guys, I know this is weird, and but we'll get through it together, and we'll figure this out as we go. I just want you to know I'm rooting for you, and I'm going to make this the best year I can for you." And in her voice, there's a sincerity that made that feeling come to me. You know what I mean? That feeling that was like, this is a person I don't know. She's a voice coming out of a computer, and she's speaking to my daughter, the most important thing in my life, and telling her I'm rooting for you. And that's powerful. That's a powerful thing. And I think that is kind of what I'm talking about. To me, that's art also, is the ability to touch people when they need it the most in a way that they most need to hear it, because all those kids, well, I'm hoping all those kids, whether they realize it or not, need to hear that. They
Yeah.
need to hear that from someone. And it's incredibly important. I really love that we started this way, because I think this is going in a great direction. But one of the things I think about when you were talking about when you were feeling you were worried about your passion and all this kind of stuff, and how you discovered it and everything, I've felt that a lot, in my life. And one thing that really turned it around for me, that's made me very prolific about my work in every way, shape, or form, is my idea of where my passion comes from, and the idea of that it's not an external, it's an internal thing. That inspiration does not come to you from an external source. It is you giving credit to something inside you, and you're just reminded by something you see. So
Yes.
and the thing that you see, and what's great about it also is what you're looking for me creatively is I'm trying to surprise myself, because when you do something and you go, oh my goodness, I didn't expect it to look like that, or to sound like that, or to be like that. In that little moment when you're surprising yourself, with people don't, which might not make sense to some people because we're doing the thing, but there is this way of that when you're doing it right and you're thinking so freely and you're exploring your creativity, that you come across something that you do that is unexpected, and that's amazing stuff. I love that.
That was me getting back into playing with that Bach piece.
Yeah.
That by all rules of the universe, I shouldn't have been able to get through, because I had neglected the horn for so long. But
Right.
it came from a different place, and it came from a place. It's not just a flash in the pan. It came from a place that was always there, but I had somehow forgotten how to turn on. And I can do it again. I can still do it. So you're right, that all of the inspiration is internal. The external stimuli just basically remind us. They're there to remind us, and sometimes inspire us to a certain extent. But we don't like. I won't go on YouTube to copy. I go on YouTube to hear another viewpoint.
Right. Yeah.
Wise. And
that's the key.
Yeah.
Is to look at it as a source of data and information, and a way of feeding that for you. And maybe, it's funny. It's like using a new color in a painting. You could say the same. So that's the thing about creative courage, is that when I talk about creativity, I could kind of explain it within the scope of 40 minutes of my view. Sometimes I have 2 hours, or sometimes I have more. And then I have like hours worth where I talk about it. And the new ways of looking at it, to me, kind of feels like I have to discover or look for a new color, and then use that color in the way that I describe it. And that reminds me of when David Bowie passed away. And there was a comedian, she's the girl, I can't remember her name. She's the girl from Portlandia. I don't know if you've seen that show, but that woman, she said that when he died, she says, it's as though we lost a color when he died. And I thought that was a very good way of describing the loss of a massive creative like David Bowie, right? And it started making me think of, because it's music, but still, music feels like color a lot of times, and in that kind of way. But
synesthesia, by the way.
Sorry?
Synesthesia is music is color. People listen to music and they see color.
Oh yeah.
It's called synesthesia.
Well, I love music in every way, all kinds of music, and I love to, and I listen to it constantly. There's a Zoe Keating, she's a cellist that hopefully I get to interview. I tried to get her to interview, but she's so bogged down in school because she's got kids, and with school stuff she didn't have time. But eventually I'll get to interview her. But she's an artist I found that is a cellist, and she's amazing. I listen to her a lot when I paint and I write. She's like my background music on this stuff, so it's exciting to get to talk to her. But the thing that's interesting is with music for me is it's hard to describe where you go when it's there. but when you get to the point where you're not really hearing it, but you're just feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to describe, but it carries you in certain directions. And a song has changed my entire project before. Like I'll hear a song and I'll be thinking blue, but the song makes me feel purple, and then all of a sudden I'll start moving towards the purple because of the music and the influence that it has. And I think that there's this synergy between the
Mm-hmm.
artist, the music they create, the world, and all of us. That is, and I know I'm sounding kind of abstract, but
No, I'm
well, you
following
get
you.
it. But I'm talking to what I'm talking to.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you get it. But I do think that there's an order in how our mind works and how the universe works and how everything works. In that music, because everybody talks about how it's mathematical and how it's produced and all stuff, but I think there's something about it that helps pull these things together, and it connects us with something bigger. Does that make any sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you would
You
agree
got
that we're.
wheels turning.
I know. So we're in a period right now of chaos.
Right.
Right? Chaos hates structure. Chaos hates structure. So I have been told by several friends who are cognitive behavioral therapists that when you're in the midst of chaos, the best thing you can do is put some structure in your life. Chaos still exists, but the structure changes the way you react to it. Now go with me on this because it goes exactly with what you're saying. If you look at starting a creative process in the midst of chaos and you put structure with it, in this case, you're putting music, which is mathematical. That math gives it the structure. Everything starts to open up because you're controlling that part of the chaos with the structure of music. You're letting the chaos go on, which is your creativity that's going on in the background. And depending on the kind of structure you put with it, whether it's cello music or it's heavy metal or it's something, I like to write with stuff that's pretty pretty mathematical. I like Bach, I like Mozart, I like Miles Davis, but they all change. That structure changes the form of whatever it is that I'm creating because it gives a different background. But anyway, I hope that made sense.
No, it totally does.
Yeah, but it's like, and the cool thing too about music in the time of chaos is that depending on what the external stuff is, it takes you different places every time you listen to it. So like if I listen to a Mahler symphony, and I love Mahler, and Mahler is structure and chaos all at the same time, which is why I really like it. And I listen to Mahler if I listen to Mahler when I'm in a really great mood, it takes me one place. If I listen when I'm in a really bad mood, it takes me another place. But it's all about that. And it inspires me to do different things. So I think all those stimuli that you bring into the equation really change what your creative product ends up being. And I would imagine they would change the colors you use as well.
Right.
I would imagine, yeah.
Well, even when you're creating a video, like, in my work, if I'm putting together a video for a client or something like that, it doesn't really come to life until I find the score I'm going to add to it. And there is a lot of work that goes into trying to find the right score, even though it's most of the time it's not really noticed, but you put it in, and even the way there is a transition in a scene, if you put it to the music, and when the music changes, there's a change in the scene and in how the copy's read or what happens, and the timing of the piece. These are things clients don't realize that you're doing. But it actually changes everything, and it really adds to it, and it almost becomes the skeleton that you need to tell the story, and it's just the music that's under this thing. And
it does. And if I can interject, a lot of times people don't notice the music that goes with videos or commercials or things like that, but they sure as heck will notice when it's wrong.
Oh yeah, if they can feel it. And a lot of times people don't know why it happens sometimes where people don't know why they like something, but I do. And it's, you know, it's pretty clear to me because it's almost because I even do this thing when I'm having a struggle with a client, when I'm trying to do a design on a logo, let's just say, and they're fighting me on it and they're arguing with me a lot about this thing. What they're doing is, it's not that they don't like the logo, it's that they don't feel any ownership in the logo because it didn't come from them. And they have to accept this thing that's super important to them that was created by somebody totally different than them. So I always invite them over to sit next to me. And then I go through the process of doing the design. And then I give them the right to change it. So they'll say, can you change that color? And the second they change one thing, it's theirs now. Because that's forever going to be there because I decided it was there. Works 100% of the time. They all of a sudden, they're easy to work with and they're happy and they love it. And that's a little secret for graphic designers out there, is that to understand that when you're a designer, you're kind of your talent's for rent at the moment. What's important is the person that's buying your work, and they're the ones that are trying to. So whatever you can do to try to. Anyway, that's off topic. But you know, you got to try to.
But it is, but it isn't, because creativity, when it's collaborative, I mean, it's good to be creative singularly, but when it's collaborative, especially when you're a professional and you're, you know, I mean, okay, say I go in to do a commercial. I go in to do like that Lincoln Project ad. Mm-hmm. I had no direction on that, really. Right. I didn't work with a producer. So I was like, well, this is kind of weird. I want that input. But most of the time you do have the input. So somebody else can write the words. I speak them. That's my art form, and that's my creativity right there. But when the client comes in and they say, well, I want you to come up at the end of that sentence. It's like, not what I would do, but hey, you're the client. And you do that for them and it completely sells them on that project. It's the same thing that you're talking about, right. Designing a logo. I mean, so the collaborative process at that point becomes really important because it's complicated, but you're creating it together. They wrote it, or they're directing you, they're ordering the logo. In my case, they want my voice. Let's work on it together. And I think collaboration is really important for creativity.
Have you ever been to my workshop?
No.
Okay. So one of the things, it's funny because it kind of taps into this thing. You know, you're right. Collaborative work is when a bunch of people in the room, and the struggle with that is sometimes there's different people working there, and you have some people that are really loud and they're really kind of maybe creative and they love hearing themselves talk, and they're the loud ones. They're always giving the ideas. And then there's people who are just as talented, but they're quieter and they're not the ones that actually throw out, and they tend to be shy, and they tend to also not be aware of how talented they are. That is what happens a lot of time. And what happens is you have a collaborative situation and nobody's on the same page, and then you're only hearing from one side of the room, and then you get an idea and everybody settles on it. But is that the best idea? It might not be. You'll never know because not everybody was really involved. And it's funny because that happens, I think, in our own heads as individuals as well as it does in groups, that you have the right and left brain and they struggle. And the creative mind is coming up with this fantastic idea and it's great. And then the other side, the technical side, is wondering whether it'll work or not. And exactly. So, because it sees that, yeah, okay, you got this crazy idea. I can't figure out how to sell it. I can't figure out how to make people care about it. And you have to figure out, sometimes it gets forced in there, and then this is like, no, I don't like it. And then you deliver a bad idea, even though it came from something fantastic. So there has to be a way of trying to manage it in your own mind, because that doubt is coming that side. It just because it's doubt doesn't mean it's wrong.
That's right.
If you're downing it, there might be something wrong with this. So this side needs to think about what this side's warning you about, and then make adjustments, and then find a happy medium, and then deliver it in the same way that you would in a room, a boardroom, or whatever it is, with a bunch of other people. But everybody has to be on the same page. And there is that technique is lost. We had it when we were younger, when we were kids. Those two sides were like this. Yeah. And then as we grow older, they're forced apart, right? And I think that then we struggle to try to bring them, or people like you and I struggle to put them back together, who are actively creative, but we're not as good as we were when we were kids. I mean,
No.
if we had the data that we have as you get older, which comes with IQ, CQ and IQ being different, creative quotient. Young people, if we had that much content, oh my God, I don't even know. I mean, there's like so much we could have done back then, with that fearlessness as a kid.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you got me going on a weird tangent on this thing. But
No, I like this. I like this tangent. This is fun.
Yeah, I just think that that's this is a fun discussion, because these are the things that are mysteries to all of us that are aware that we're creative and actively trying to be creative. Everybody's creative. That's a given for me. They're just not aware of it. They're not aware that they're doing it. But us that actually see the value of it and actually work towards it, and knowing that it's a total mystery as to where it comes from and what it's about and why it exists and where it's going. We have opinions, but there's no scientific data that proves to a T, exactly what it is, the purpose of it. At least I don't think there is. From what I understand, there isn't really any solid data. It's all a matter of opinion and theory and all that kind of stuff. And I've heard a lot of it, but
you can't really measure it. That's the problem. So if there are studies out there that try to measure it and try to say things. I just read one a couple of months ago about music, kids learning music in school. It's the thesis basically was, the question was, do kids improve their minds or their ability to their intelligence or their acuity on tests by studying music? And the conclusion was absolutely not. And I'm like, so I read the study, which was dry and boring. And as I was reading through it, I realized that there were things that they put into this equation that were facts, right? They could put in facts, but what they couldn't put in was that X factor. You can't measure this. You can't quantify. You can't quantify an idea. You can't quantify an inspiration. So these people with their throwing statements like that, I see those and I'm like, oh, let me at this. I want to read this. And it's like, nope, you can't. Your paper that you probably got a grant to write. And then I researched the authors, and this is kind of what they do, right? They get grants, they write these papers, and they all come to about the same conclusion, whether it's creativity or something else. And it's like, no, you're trying to measure something that's fleet. You're trying to measure stardust, and you can't.
Well, I have something to share without that specifically, because I'm in a group called the Advanced Reasoning Forum. And the only reason I'm in part of this group, and I might just did it before, I think, but the only reason I'm in this group of philosophy professors, university level philosophy professors, people in charge of the university, in University of Utah's philosophy department. This guy's very smart, even looks like exactly what you think he looks like. He looks like that.
Okay.
The hair and the crazy hair and the thing, and got books behind him, and it's just a mess. And I'm in these Zoom meetings with these guys. And the reason I'm in it is because I helped the guy who founded the organization. I helped him on a book on critical thinking, where he took all the arguments and turned them into comic strips. And I'm the one who designed all the comic strips.
Oh.
And he and I collaborated a lot. And he said that my input helped him understand the way to teach the thing. So he invites me, but I'm not an academic. I'm not even close to the level of brain power that these guys are there at. And so a lot of times, some of the things they're talking about, I have no idea what they're saying. And one of them was, what is green? And that was his question to the group. And he had a huge explanation of what green was that had nothing to do with color. It had to do with our idea of the feeling and and all this kind of stuff. And then I just jumped in, because what's the point of being in a room full of these kinds of smart guys? And I always talk about creative courage. I'm jumping in, totally unqualified, but I jumped in, and I was like, well, okay, from an artistic perspective, because that's my only position here, is that for me, it's a piece of language. So the way you're describing it to me is incredibly depressing. And it sucks all the life out of it, and it makes it completely pointless. And I don't really understand what the point of this whole discussion is, to be honest. So I just, I went, and it was really interesting, because that was just how I was really feeling. And it was really interesting, because all of a sudden another professor goes, yeah, I agree with Alex. And about half of the room was on my side of this thing, where they were just being polite about this thing. But then I opened up kind of a thing, and it turned into a whole other discussion. Really frustrated the guy that was doing the presentation.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but it was interesting how it kind of turned out. And this is why I question to you that study, and I wouldn't mind if you had it, if you wanted to share it with me, I'd love to see it.
I will find it for you.
One of the things I think is probably something where, what do I know? But that they might have made a mistake in, is they were thinking of it in terms of the system of education that we have. Now, if you try to fit it in within the systematic way we teach kids now, they might be right. But I've always kind of had this feeling that education is too competitive. And when you turn creativity or even learning into a competitive thing, as opposed to an actual growth and learning thing, it kind of changes it, because then it creates doubts, and it creates some people feeling, because they learn differently, they're feeling they're not adequate or not as smart as the people that fit into the systematic way of educating. And I've always thought the grading system should be not compared to what's expected in the class. It should be based on the history of their own personal learning. So if I took this particular test and I got a D in it, then I need to go further along as I grow, educate, and then I'm competing with my previous grade. And I got to learn based on my growth system and my development. And your goal is to just get better as an individual, where you're competing against yourself rather than others. And I know that's a perception thing. And I know that some people say, well, they could just do that anyway. But I don't think it feels like that in our education system. It needs to feel like I am in competition with myself rather than these people.
Exactly. That's the way I approach it when I teach my horn students. One of the things that I've done differently in the last 6 months is I teach differently. I used to have kids come over to the house, and I'd teach them, and they'd sit in the living room and play, and we talk back and forth and everything, and that was pretty much it. Now I write music out for them before the lesson. I scan it and send it over. As they're playing, I write notes, and I refer back to my notes rather than depending on my memory. Refer back to my notes, and I don't look at each student as, well, you need to be up to where Billy is here. You're not as good as Billy. I don't compare students to students. And this is an epiphany for me as a teacher, because I can actually see on paper the amount of progress these kids have made. And I think you're onto something. I think our education system needs to change, but I don't know how, since our education system is built on a rigid.
It's terrible. It's terrible. It's in my opinion, it's garbage. And I think that we're just stuck with it, because it's like trying to turn the Titanic around right now, because it's so huge and it's so set up. And I have no problem saying that I think it's garbage, because I think that it should be looked at the way we look. Okay, first of all, we don't teach kids how to learn anyway. We just kind of expect that they would know. And it's systematic learning. It's not like natural learning. It's different. And some kids can't do it the way that other kids can. Some kids are built that way. So there's a lot of things that can be changed. And I think that it's like, okay, so how do you teach sports? So, can you tell a kid verbally how to run faster? No, you can't. How do you explain to someone verbally in a classroom, sitting in a chair, ways to run faster? It's impossible. How do you teach them? By having them run.
You do it. You teach them to
you do it. And a lot of times in class, the thing that gives them confidence is giving them something to do that surprises them, which is creatively, music, through the arts. The arts isn't about art. The arts is about creating confidence and courage in people, so they can start to see, and also it stimulates it releases dopamine in your brain when you start doing these things, and it's pleasurable, and you do these things that you like, because even if you're not a musician, if you get a chance to, grab a French, first of all, it's one of the most beautiful instruments, a French horn. And, you get to hold it, and you get to play it, and you get to try it and make some crazy noises out of it. That's fun. It's just fun. And it's an experience, and it's good. And you tried something new, and it makes you want, maybe I'll try clarinet, or maybe I'll try the drums, or maybe I'll try something else, or maybe this isn't it, but I like the feeling I got. Maybe it's in painting, maybe it's in writing, maybe there's something else there. And then you start to get drawn into this, and then you carry that confidence into your math class, into your history class, into your English class. And I think that's something that's lost in they don't see it's as important than the core curriculum is the arts. It is.
I agree.
And it can save lives. If we actually took it seriously, we're losing people that aren't being stimulated at a young age, and they're getting into things to look for stimulation that's driving them into bad things like drugs, alcohol, violence, because they're looking for stimulation because they're young and they don't have access to other things they can be stimulated by that are positive.
Exactly.
Anyway, I could go on and on.
But I think, no, but what you're saying is absolutely true. And I think you and I aren't going to do anything about the screwed up educational system. What we can do is provide ways for kids to learn despite it. You know, there are things that they're going to have to do because that's what the system tells them they have to do. What we can do for these kids is extra. And that extra might help them get through that rigid framework that they have. That is structure that I don't think is the positive kind of structure, but it's the kind of structure we're stuck with. So what we do is we help make that, as artists, we help make that more tolerable.
Yeah, and that's the goal. I feel like I've been doing too much talking in this interview. It is an interview. See, you can tell I'm not a professional at this, but the goal is to have a fun conversation, right?
Oh, no, this is great.
So one of the things I want to tell you about, if you've had this experience, I had this experience because I've talked to a lot of kids about art, and I've had a lot of experiences where I go to schools, and I did a book, a children's book called The Sheep Counting Dream, where I showed some and then I went to the Las Vegas book festival.
Right?
Yeah, and I had my booth, and I thought, well, what am I gonna do? Sit here with a bunch of books? So I started doing drawing lessons for kids, where I do like, here's how you draw a line out of a 5, and then I'd get crowds of kids, and I'd show them how to do this. And while I was doing it, there was a little boy who had a learning disability, and he was over to my right, and his mom was there. And then I would get these waves. I'd do my thing. And then the waves of kids, I'd say, all right, thanks, guys. And they would leave. And then another wave of kids would come by. I'd do my thing and they'd leave. And he wouldn't leave. He sat there and he was just, drawing. He's trying to draw. He's very into it. And I started noticing that what he was doing. And it was funny because I got to get props here to show you. So when he was drawing, he's going ahead and he's drawing the picture. And I looked at him, and it was a point where everybody's gone. It was just me and him. And I looked at the mom, and this was before social distancing, of course. And I said, there's something I want to show him. Is it okay? But I have to touch his hand. Is that okay? And she said, sure. And all I did is I put my hand on top of his hand, and I moved his palm down to where it rested on the page. And all of a sudden he started drawing straight lines, and he was able to, and huge difference in how he was doing it before. And it kind of blew my mind that nobody said this to him before. Nobody saw, see that he would draw, and he loved drawing, but nobody just did this. And in just doing this, all of a sudden, and he got so excited by that simple thing. He actually got visibly excited, and the mom was very happy, and it was like this thing. But, and I'm not a genius. I'm not any special kind of person. I just noticed something and thought, hey, I'll just ask, because that's what you do in life. You're supposed to say, hey, ask things, do things. And it became a metaphor for me for a lot of things of that maybe we could be doing better, because sometimes things are that simple. Are we paying attention, really paying that much attention to what people are going through and how they're handling things and how they're approaching things? That's this
is one thing that I particularly enjoy about teaching horn on FaceTime and Skype and Zoom. So imagine that you're a kid coming over to my house. First of all, I'm sitting next to you. I'm not sitting in front of you. I'm not going like this and looking into the screen. I'm not looking into your face like that because frankly, that would be creepy, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm able to do, and I talk to my kids about this. I talk to my kids about this all the time. I've actually explained that, you know, hey, I'm looking at you. I'm seeing things that I didn't see before. And it's like, when we go back to the one-on-one teaching, I'm going to be looking a lot differently because I'm able to see little things like that. And it's like that you don't see one-on-one. So I guess that's the taking lemons and making lemonade
Right.
part of this whole thing. But it's really true. Finding just a little thing like that. I mean, to me, moving a kid's hand down on a pencil would be kind of a big thing, but look at the huge difference it made in his life.
Well, yeah, at least I in his drawing at the very least, and being able to at least get excited about just that moment of excitement was worth it. Just that moment of excitement that he had, like a moment of discovery that happened. That's kind of.
But think about the ripples. I mean,
right.
That kid's probably never going to forget that.
Well, you hope it helps in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. But like you said, being as a teacher, which is fantastic. You know, teaching, I mean, that's something I was thinking that I might get into later on in life as my second chapter, like the 20th chapter of my life. But the fact that what you said, turning lemons into lemonade, that's so true. And it's the thing that people need to remember, especially now. We're humans. We're smart. We adapt to things. You know, this is tough. Yeah, but so what? We've been through a lot of tough things. And we sorted it out. We figured things out. This is where we're at now. You know, lift your head up and just let's go forward and find things. And then you noticing that there's a new way of looking at a musician, young musician, from a different perspective, because you're not physically in the room with them. And there's benefits sometimes to that. And now I'll bet when this is over and you're in the room with another student, your perspective is broader now because of what we've learned.
Pardon me, I have a cat that's eating a book here.
I'm in my cat room, which is funny.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, usually I shut the door and I usually by this time they're outside the door meowing, wanting to come in. But anyway.
No, you're right. It's the perspectives change, and I think it's important for us, just as human beings, to allow ourselves, once again, I mean, going back to what we were talking about the passion coming out, just letting this stuff happen and being open, not trying to force ourselves back into the pattern of the way things used to be. People always say, well, when are things going to get back to normal? Well, guess what? You know, normal's going to look a lot different. I don't have enough data to be able to predict what it's going to look like or when it's going to happen. All I know is that, I mean, things change anyway, with or without a pandemic. But there's profound change happening right now. None of us know what it's going to look like. But being open to these changes in perspective, I think, is really, really important. It's important for survival, but it's more important for our growth.
I think that's a great way to end this conversation. That was good. That was a good way of just bringing it all together. You know, I think that was fantastic. Hey, thank you so much for making.
So welcome. I'm so sorry it's taken so long to do this. I was like,
oh, you're so difficult to get a hold of. You're just all over doing so many things. You're so busy. No.